Hey, welcome to a lamination update. It's been quite a while. What I've got is 3 Phoenixes in front of me, and by the way, I'm Bear, and we're just taking a look at them, and really what I'm doing is walking by a Blacklight Phoenix right now. And the first piece of the update is that we've made the first change to Blacklight since we began. And I've got to give a little bit of background and say that we introduced Stealth 4 years ago or thereabouts. And Stealth has an outer layer of carbon negra. Up until now, Blacklight has had an outer layer of carbon. And we stick with things that are tried and true, and we test things for a long time before we're sure that they're ready for prime time. And what all that means is that we're really impressed by the carbon negra on Stealth boats. It is offering a little bit of extra abrasion resistance, a little bit extra impact resistance on Stealth, and we want to offer that. We want to give that to Blacklight as well. So that's not to say that Blacklight is in any way not durable. That's to say that now we've made Blacklight a little bit more durable than it already was. And so from now on, any boat that is black in color that comes out of our shop, be it a Stealth, be it a Blacklight, or the other thing that I'm going to talk about in a minute, it will be carbon negra. It'll be a co-weave of carbon negra. And we've got a new option, which is BlackHD. And you'll notice it is in between IXP and Blacklight. And that is intentional, because it is in between. For years we've had paddlers call us up and struggle with whether they should get a Blacklight or an IXP. And there's a big difference between them, and it's hard to convey how much. And this is not science. Charlie would be appalled by this, but this is my way, and I usually do this by gesturing with people. But let's just take a look at my tick marks. So that bottom tick mark is Stealth, and then Starlight, and then Blacklight. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of the spread between them. And is this in any way scientific? Not a bit, but it gives you an idea. And so, wow, those aren't that far apart, but they are, incrementally speaking. That Stealth boat is a lot less durable than that Blacklight boat. That Blacklight boat is a whole bunch more durable than Starlight. But now let's back up. So notice where those tick marks are. A little bit further, a little bit further. Hey, see that tick mark? See where those other ones are? Right there? That top tick mark's IXP. And is there any science behind where those are placed at all? Nah, that's a black magic marker I drew on a magic that's going to Finland. But what I wanted to do is give a visual impression of how different IXP is from Blacklight or Starlight or Stealth. And that illustration gets that point across. The calls that we get from people trying to decide between Blacklight and IXP as easy for instances and examples are, hey, I'm going to paddle the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. Which one should I get? I'm going to paddle Wabakimi and all the rivers that run through Wabakimi. I'm going to paddle down in the Ozarks. You know, those are all places where people are trying to figure out whether they want IXP or Blacklight. And I'll say that in the Ozarks, it's IXP. There's just no discussion. In the other two places where there's portages, because there aren't portages in the Ozarks in any real way, but in Wabakimi on the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, there's a lot of portaging. There's a lot of places you can't run. Which one should you get? Well, it all depends on how much you want to run versus how much you want to portage. And a Blacklight boat has always been about, you know what, it's a portaging lamination. We build it with the idea that we're keeping it lightweight, and then we try to beef it up enough that it'll handle a limited amount of river running. And so now what we've got is BlackHD right in between the two, with the intention that it can handle river running in a significant way. So all those people that have been struggling with which way to go, now there's a middle ground as opposed to the bookends of the spectrum. For 2026, Blacklight BlackHD is only available on 4 solos. They are the Northwind Solo, the Trillium, the Phoenix, and the Firebird. Come 2027, somewhere in there maybe, we expect to have it available on certain tandems. For anyone that doesn't recall, when we introduced IXP in 2017-ish, it came out first as only on solos, and then the next year it came out on tandems. And that's because it's easier to get a lamination, to perfect a lamination. Solo boats are more forgiving. They don't have as broad of beams. And it's, of course, easier to test when you focus simply on solo boats. And so we've got a bunch of HDs out there that have been getting banged around. And now what we've got to do is work toward that on tandems in a more significant way than we already have. So HD adds about 5 pounds to a Blacklight solo. It adds $200 to the cost. And so, you know, call it 27-ish pounds, like 33-ish pounds, somewhere in there, 28, 33, I don't remember, 40. So it's not quite halfway between Blacklight and IXP. Really, one of the big things that I can point out really easily about these is, look at this. See the foam core? Whoop, there we go. See the foam core? Blacklights have foam cores. They also have ribs, and so do BlackHDs and IXPs. But what BlackHDs and IXPs don't have is foam cores. See how small that flotation tank is? So that's the foam dam that we create, that we laminate Kevlar over, and then we've got a 2-part marine grade pour foam that goes in there. Well, what happens when you take away the foam core? Let's swing over to IXP, because that's what we've been doing for a long while now. No foam core. Look at how much bigger that flotation tank needs to be without that foam core. No foam core means no spot where the stress on the boat differs. If you hit a rock on a boat, I'm going to jump back over here for a second. If you hit a rock right here, there's a notable difference in terms of how that foam behaves and how that cloth behaves. And so those impacts are the hardest on the boat. Eliminate that foam, and now we've got to put more cloth into the boat to create durability as opposed to foam. You know, somehow we've got to come up with a stiff enough boat. And adding stiffness can either come from foam, Blacklight, which keeps the weight down, or it can come from adding cloth, HD, or IXP. And so HD, you'll notice that the exterior, first, looks exactly like a Blacklight. You can't tell them apart if you look at the outside of them. Look at the interior though. No foam core, big fat float tank. Now you got an HD on your hands. So the HD looks a lot like the IXP on the interior, a lot like the Blacklight on the exterior, and the weight is right in between them. We're trying to make a distinction for people between river running and whitewater. And so if you want to bump and grind down all the stuff in the Ozarks, you still want one of these boats. You want an IXP. There really isn't much decision making in the process. But if you're paddling the northern forest, Wabakimi, places where there's a lot of portaging, now all of a sudden HD is something to think about. Now it's, you know, this is a less expensive, more durable option. This will save you a bunch of pounds, you know, like 6-7 pounds maybe, but at a higher cost. And so there's more technology, of course, that's going in, and more costly materials that go into a Blacklight. IXP is a replacement for Royal X. BlackHD isn't. You know, there's a lot of laminations out there that have similar durabilities to BlackHD from other manufacturers. There's very little that has equivalence to IXP. So this is a way for us to get you something where you can run a bunch of moving water with it without doing a lot of hardcore whitewatery stuff all the time with it. We would never build an Akoi in BlackHD. How's that for another way to put this? And another thing that is an indicator, which is the Northwind Solo and the Trillium are both available in E6 trim. We are not allowing E6 trim to go on BlackHD boats. Why? Because E6 trim, if it fails, it's a catastrophic fail. I mean, carbon is not a happy camper, especially carbon foam, when it gets flexed beyond the point of no return. We've had a lot of IXP boats come in that people have wrapped, that people have done bad things to in rivers, let alone the other thing, which is much more common and amongst all the repairs that we do, is car topping issues. But anyway, we've seen a whole bunch of IXPs come in that have been mutilated, for lack of a better way to put it. And what we do is we pop the rails off, we reshape the hull, put new rails on, and away they go. But what we know, and the point of where I was headed was, aluminum trim can get kinked, can get torqued, can get reshaped in major ways, and you can still paddle out of the wilderness with it. Wood trim will allow that too, because wood trim is actually even more resilient than either aluminum or E6 is in terms of its flexibility. E6, though, we're not confident in what's going to happen if you really reshape a boat with E6 trim on it. And we want to make sure, and the reason why we build the boats the way we do, even Starlights, is because we want you to get out of the woods and not worry about it. You know, if you're using the boat in the ways that we've intended and the ways that we've built it for, it will get you out of the woods way more than you ever expect it will. And so that is why we do what we do. And just like I always say, the goal is to build functional boats for paddlers. And so what you're looking at is 3 functional boats for different functions. Blacklight for primarily portaging, but running some moving water. HD for running more moving water and less portaging. And IXP for, why would I get out of the boat? I can run that. So that's the update. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the water.